What's up, everybody? Welcome to Podcast Now Plus. I'm Alex, and in this video, I want to talk about some of the worst The Batman reviews out there on the internet. Now, I want to make sure I come across pretty darn clear because I'm not saying that criticism isn't allowed. I'm not saying that this movie is perfect. I don't want it to come across that way. But and by the way, because I've seen some negative things. I've seen stuff about the third act. I know there's also been a lot of positives about the third act, but I've seen some negatives as well. But no, I mean, there's things. I'm pretty sure this movie's not going to come out and just be literally perfect. There's not one thing you could say, well, maybe if they tweaked that or did this instead. I don't, you know what I mean? And I don't think you can do that for anything. I think any movie, any game, any TV show, there's going to be some sort of issue with, right? So again, I'm not saying criticism is not allowed. But what I found, and what I think a lot of people have found from the critics on Rotten Tomatoes, it seems like dark, gritty, like that equates to bad, right? So we've seen like the Seattle Times girl, right? Who's, by the way, she is a top critic, Seattle Times, talking about how the world, like it's too depressing, and because the real world is not in the greatest spot over the which, by the way, I agree with that, over the last 2 years, that the movie, how can you make you're not allowed to make a movie like that because you're just going to make people feel a certain way. So I have a couple of, and it's not just her, there's a couple other critics that are basically saying the exact same thing. Now, there are people, again, talking about, like, the lighting, like, it's literally a dark movie. Like, it takes place at night, it takes place in shadows, like, it's very hard to see. Fine, if that's an actual criticism, that's an actual criticism. You know what I mean? Again, that's okay, but I have a couple things, I guess, to say for that one. Number one, the movie and the real world have nothing to do with each other. I don't know if she knows this or if any of them know this, but this is a Batman story with Batman and Gotham, and Gotham is not real. And Batman, sadly, I'm sorry to report, I mean, you can go out and act like him and well, I don't know if you should do that, but Batman's not real either. I don't know, again, if they understand this. So you can have a real world that, yes, I mean, and the real world, again, I'm not going to sit back and say the last 2 years have been sunny and bright and everybody's just been living their best life. Of course, I understand, the reality of it. But here's the thing, like, because I believe in the general sense of escapism in terms of movies or even games, right? Like, to go in and to experience something that just escapes you from the real world. And I think sometimes, well, these people also don't even want that and don't believe in that. I think that's maybe their number one problem. But number two is when those two things are actually still separate, but they're close together in a way. I guess really this is like the prime example, right? So like the Batman, as far as I can tell, is not supposed to be some sort of subtle messaging for America or the dark times we live in. You know what I mean? Like that's not, from what I've gathered, what the point of the movie is, which again is all these people can actually see is that stuff. So, I don't think that's the point. But yes, I don't doubt that the movie maybe is dark and maybe it is bleak and maybe or hopeless. We've heard these kind of words thrown around, right? I'm not doubting that, but I think these people also can't separate fiction from reality, you know what I mean? So they see their lives like this, and they go into the movie and they say, I can't believe that the movie is also, I'm already a depressed, dark individual. I hate everybody. I hate myself. I can't believe the movie, the movie is also kind of like that, but it's not. It's like it, but it's not. Does that make sense? Probably not. But that's, again, like, it sucks to see, number one, top critics. Number two, people that write for these like big things. Number three, people that count against or for the Rotten Tomatoes score, right, or any score, right? Having these kind of minds. Can we not judge the movie based off of the actual movie? Does that make sense? And I think you can. I think that argument kind of holds forever. Even when you inject real life stuff into the movie, now you could say, well, is that okay? I've never been against it to the point of being like, well, if you immediately inject anything that seems remotely real, all of a sudden it's going to be a complete disaster. Not necessarily. Oftentimes, though, they don't do it right, or there's just, there's something wrong with it, or that's all that really matters. You know what I mean? So for this example, it would probably be like the dark depressingness is all there is to the movie, and that's like the defining feature of the film, because again, they're trying to say something about like the modern world, or like the last couple of years we're in, which again that's not what they're doing. So I get it. because this is actually one of the things, rare times, right? I don't like sympathize with this person, right? And as I've said, like gaming reviews people, movie review people, I could literally care less about these people because ultimately they could care less about me, and I don't think many of them are good at their jobs and all that. I mean, we've talked about this before, but I do have a heart. It's over here, maybe it's up here. It's somewhere in my body, and I do to a certain extent get it when we do live in these times and they can bring people down, and it's not so easy, and everybody's life is different, right? So some people get hit much worse than with anything, with literally anything, right? Some people get hit pretty hard. Some people don't. Some people take it harder than not, you know what I mean? Like I understand that. However, I will say this, right? That I understand and that I get. And then I do understand, again, to an okay extent, if you go to the movie theater and you see a movie that maybe in your head, maybe reminds you of your day, to, stuff like that. But here's what I would say. Number one, you need help. And I don't say that as like some, like you need help, you're pathetic. I don't. You just need to look at it. You need to look at life. You need to just try to find if it's a family member, if it's a friend. I truly mean this. That's all you need to, well, I don't know if it's all you need to do, but that's like the first step. You know what I mean? That's really a big part of it. But number two, you probably, so all that stuff I just said, we just laid that stuff down, but you probably shouldn't be reviewing the movie for Seattle, New York Times, I know New York Post did something, let's just pick. It doesn't have to be her, right? And by the way, as always, don't go after these people. I don't know who these people are, so I'm not going to go after them either. So I'm just making sure everybody knows that, right? So it could be anybody, right? Don't review it for your publication if you can't separate, one thing from the other. It kind of goes into anything else. When you're Kotaku and you're reviewing the PS5 and you need to insert an entire paragraph about how the world is burning around you, Biden versus Trump, all this stuff, that's, I think, what you're really thinking about. And I think it's kind of driving you so crazy that you needed, for some unknown God-forsaken reason, you needed to put that entire multiple paragraphs in your article instead of continuing to just talk about the people. You know what I mean? Does that make sense? So I think these people, again, I don't think they're immediately massively evil. I do think some of them are, but I don't think, specifically for the Seattle Times, maybe it's just I get it. Life's been hard. Maybe don't review the movie, or don't hold that against the movie. Just because the movie is dark and your life is dark does not mean the movie is a 2 out of 10. It's just, what about the film? What about the characters? And is the plot good? Are the characters good? Did you fall asleep during? Because if if it drags it out and there's not enough to kind of keep you interested, those are legit criticisms. Is if the Riddler's not, and I'm not saying I've heard really good things about the Riddler. Let's say the Riddler sucked. That would be considered a valid criticism. Not that the movie is dark. You know what I mean? That's some movies are. Some movies are very positive and light. I think Sonic will be very positive. Go watch Sonic. You should feel good. You know what I mean? It's tough. It's tough because I do get it to a certain extent. I want to make that known. I want to make, it's not like I'm heartless. It's not like I don't see these things or can't see any other opinion but my own. I get it. But I also think you shouldn't be reviewing it. You shouldn't be reviewing it for this big publication. You shouldn't be using that one thing, dark, depressing, whatever, as your entire argument for why the movie is horrible, or you give it a horrible score. Why would you do that? And ultimately, again, I think it's because they can't separate their life from what they're doing, their job. They just think the world, and which, if you think the world's falling around you, you have the right to think that. I don't really think you should operate your life around that. I think we all should, get better about that and talk to each other and stuff like that. But, it's not a therapy session, so I won't keep you here too long. Anyways, let me know what you guys think. Make sure you guys are subscribed to the channel, bell icon turned on so all these videos go up. And I hope to see you all for tomorrow's video.